The Prada heels were 3 seasons old. The sunglasses, a gift from a husband who now wouldn't even return a text. And the bench? It didn't belong to her. Neither did the future. Naima Lark sat outside a grocery store in La Jolla, her body upright but her spirit collapsed. Cars passed. Strollers rolled. People laughed. The world moved on, unaware that a woman once married to a billionaire had just been wiped clean. Bank accounts, name, pride. She tried to re-download the Uber app. Error. She tapped Bank of Southern Trust. Balance, $0. That's how it ended. Not with a fight. Not even a proper goodbye. But with a courier who dropped off divorce papers and a note typed in Blaine's assistant's voice. You'll land on your feet. You always do. What he didn't know. She had nothing left to land on. No apartment. He had her evicted 3 days ago. No friends. Most had already moved on to newer wives and younger networks. No money. He drained every shared account down to the dust. She was still wearing the wedding band. She wasn't sure why. Habit, maybe. Or disbelief. Or maybe some part of her still thought he'd come back and say he was sorry. But Blaine Forrester didn't do apologies. He did press interviews and fast exits. And now, all Naima had left was a suitcase tucked under the bench and a cardigan that didn't match the weather. Then he appeared. Not like a movie. Not with music swelling or fate clicking into place. He just walked by. Dark hoodie, gym bag slung across one shoulder. Calm face, sharp jaw, quiet eyes. He didn't try to rescue her. He didn't ask for her name. He only said one thing. You okay? She looked away. Didn't answer. That should have been it. But he didn't leave. He sat beside her. A few inches of silence. A few feet of decency. The sun began to slip behind the rooftop of the store. A family walked past, laughing. A baby in a stroller pointed at a pigeon. The man didn't move. Naima wasn't sure if it was the ache in her ribs from holding back tears or the simple kindness of his presence. But she spoke. My husband emptied our accounts. I signed divorce papers this morning. I don't even have money for a ride home. Still, he didn't flinch. He turned slightly and said, Okay, let's get you out of the sun. No pity, no judgment, just that quiet steadiness she hadn't felt in years. She followed him, not because she trusted him, but because staying on that bench any longer felt worse than walking into the unknown. Welcome back to Mr. Charles Stories. This isn't your typical love story. It's not about revenge. It's not about getting even. It's about what happens when a woman is discarded and left with nothing, but finds someone who doesn't try to fix her. He just stands beside her while she fixes herself. If you've ever been left behind, broken by someone who swore they'd protect you, or forced to rebuild when no one offered you a safety net, stay with us. Because the woman he left with nothing, she didn't just rise, she rebuilt. Before we begin, do this. Tap the like button if you believe broken hearts deserve better endings. Subscribe so you never miss a story that hits deep and lifts higher. And comment, I'm still standing, if you've ever had to restart your life from scratch. Now, let's go back to the marriage that started the fall and the man who never thought she'd recover. 6 years earlier, Naima Lark hadn't walked into a luxury life. She'd been groomed for it. Blaine Forrester didn't chase women. He curated them. And Naima? She had been the perfect canvas. Smart, elegant, low maintenance. She didn't talk too much. She didn't ask too many questions. And most importantly, she understood how to fit in. When she met Blaine, she was working as a freelance brand consultant in Los Angeles. He'd been the keynote speaker at a tech founders retreat, and she was the event's branding coordinator. He stood out for all the obvious reasons: wealth, confidence, tailored everything. But what surprised her was his attention. He noticed the layout she designed, asked questions no one else bothered with, told her she had taste most people spend millions trying to fake. Then he asked for her card. By their third date, she was in his San Diego penthouse eating oysters, with people who called each other power couples without irony. By month 3, she'd turned down her next 2 contracts. He said she didn't need to hustle anymore. And 6 months later, they were engaged. It was fast, but it felt like the kind of fast that only happened in stories told over champagne. And Naima wanted to believe it was her turn for ease. At the wedding, Blaine's father whispered into her ear, "You've upgraded him, you know. Don't let him forget it." But he would forget. Often. The first year was smooth. Naima poured herself into being wife material. She helped redesign the company's logo, refreshed its product packaging, even managed to secure a small write-up in an LA wellness blog. Blaine bragged about her at meetings, called her my secret weapon. But the praise faded fast. By year 2, her suggestions were off-brand. By year 3, she was asked to let the experts handle it. And by year 4, she stopped offering ideas altogether. She became excellent at managing the home. Chef schedules, housekeeping rotations, event planning, gift-giving for board member birthdays, thank you notes for their stylists. She curated silence, made herself smaller, and watched as Blaine grew louder. The man who once told her she was rare now forgot to look up from his phone during dinner. He traveled more, posted pictures she wasn't in, smiled wider around women who never asked for anything except more champagne. Naima's friends started asking uncomfortable questions. "You okay? You're good? Where is he these days?" She gave short answers, practiced ones. "Oh, he's expanding into Miami. Just a work season. We're fine." But she wasn't, because something in her had shifted. She used to dream about launching her own agency. Now she had folders full of ideas and no one to share them with. She used to speak up. Now she calculated which sentences Blaine would call nagging. She stopped going to industry events, stopped posting photos of her own, stopped speaking when they had company over. Once, Blaine joked during a dinner party, "Naima's the most beautiful ghost in the room. Quiet, elegant, and everywhere at once." Everyone laughed. Naima smiled. But something inside her quietly cracked. By year 5, the distance between them could have filled a canyon. They no longer argued. They just moved around each other like two satellites with nothing left to orbit. She found receipts for dinners she didn't attend, lip gloss on collars she never wore. But when she brought it up, Blaine always shrugged. "You know how it is. People throw themselves at money. I'm not responsible for their delusions." He never said he was loyal. He just made her feel foolish for expecting it. Still, Naima stayed, not because she was weak, but because she had nowhere else to land. Her family lived 3 states away and barely understood her world. She hadn't worked in years, and if she left, where would she go? Then came the night. Everything changed. She had just come back from visiting her mother in Georgia. The house was too quiet. Her key worked, but something felt different. She walked inside. No welcome note, no call, no flowers. But on the marble kitchen island was a thick white envelope. Inside, divorce papers, a list of items she was allowed to take, a note typed by Blaine's assistant. And at the bottom, in Blaine's scrawl, "You'll land on your feet. You always do." No explanation, no apology, no goodbye. She tried to log into their shared bank account. Denied. She tried the second account, the one with her name on it but managed by his team. Zero balance. Her credit cards? Frozen. Her name had been removed from the condo lease 3 weeks prior. She hadn't even noticed the mail. It took exactly 6 minutes for her to go from Mrs. Blaine Forrester to Naima Lark, no known address. She stuffed a few essentials into a suitcase. 1 black dress, 1 pair of heels, a silk scarf she bought herself years ago, and the ring, not because she wanted it, but because it reminded her of how blind she'd been. She closed the door behind her for the last time, not knowing where to go, not knowing how to start over, not knowing what she still had left. By sunset, she was outside a grocery store, tired, hungry, hollow. She'd once walked red carpets, sat front row at tech launch parties, planned charity events with stylists and florists flown in from across the country. Now she was sitting on a public bench, rejected by an Uber app, ignored, by passers-by, and ashamed of how easily she'd been discarded. But sometimes, rock bottom doesn't look like chaos. Sometimes, it looks like quiet, like holding your own phone and realizing no one's calling, like realizing you've been invisible in your own life for years. The bench was metal, the kind that burns under summer sun and chills under fog. Naima didn't know how long she'd been sitting on it, only that her body had stopped registering discomfort. Her hands were still, but inside, she was unraveling. She'd checked her phone 4 times. No texts, no calls, no sudden apology from Blaine saying it had all been a test, or a mistake. Naima knew better. Blaine didn't do mistakes. He did clean breaks. The Prada heels pinched her toes. Her bun had started to loosen. A single tear streaked down her cheek, and she didn't even bother wiping it away. That's when she heard footsteps slow. Not stop. Just pause. She sensed him before she saw him. A quiet presence. Still. Solid. Hey. A voice. Warm. Low. You okay? She didn't look up. What kind of question was that? Of course she wasn't. She had nowhere to go, no cash, no credit, and no friends in reach who weren't already sipping champagne at Blaine's favorite rooftop bar. Still, the voice didn't move. I'm not trying to bother you, he added. Naima turned slowly. He was sitting now, a few inches away, but not too close. He didn't have the eager energy of someone looking for a story. He looked grounded. She studied him from behind her sunglasses. He looked early to mid to 30s, neat fade, broad shoulders under a simple dark hoodie, basketball shorts, clean sneakers, no ring, no badge, no clipboard, just eyes that waited without pressure. The silence stretched, then her throat moved, cracked by disuse. My husband emptied our accounts, she said, voice flat. He sent the divorce papers this morning. I have nothing. She didn't know why she told him. Maybe because she had no more lies left in her. No, I'm fine. No, it's complicated. Just the bare truth, dropped in a single breath. He nodded once. Not shocked, not intrusive. Okay, he said. Let's get you out of the sun. She followed. She didn't know his name. Didn't ask. She just walked behind him, quiet and cautious. He didn't lead her far. Just a block away to a boutique inn with ivy on the walls and warm light coming from behind gold-trimmed windows. The kind of place that didn't smell like cheap air freshener or synthetic bedding. He spoke to the desk clerk in a low voice, handed over his card and signed quickly. Then he walked her up the stairs and opened the door. It was small, clean, inviting. A queen bed, a soft beige blanket, a chair near the window, bottled water on the table. He didn't step inside. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a card. A real one. Thick, matte black with clean white lettering. M. Rhodes, Private Hospitality Consultant, Rhodeswell Management Group. If you want to talk, yell, or sit with someone who doesn't care what your last name was, call me. He placed the card on the nightstand. Then he walked out. No questions, no suggestions, no hovering. Just a door that shut gently behind him. Naima didn't move for almost 20 minutes. She stood in the center of the room, watching the card like it was some sort of code she couldn't crack. M. Rhodes. She'd never heard of Rhodeswell. She peeled off her heels, collapsed on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. She was supposed to be in Bora Bora this weekend, supposed to be celebrating her anniversary on a yacht with imported strawberries and silk robes. Instead, she was in a borrowed room from a stranger with kind eyes. She curled into the blanket and cried quietly. Not the sobs of someone surprised by loss, but the deep, tired ache of someone who saw it coming for years, and stayed anyway. The next morning, she woke up before dawn. She looked for her phone. No missed calls. She pulled open the curtain. The city was slow to rise, just streaks of pink cutting through the grey. Her stomach growled. She ignored it. Instead, she walked to the dresser, picked up the card, and stared. She didn't want saving. She wanted to feel human again. At 8:15 a.m., she dialed the number. One ring. 2, 3, roads. His voice was the same, calm. "It's Naima," she said softly. "The woman from the bench." A pause. "I remember. I'd like to take you up on that offer. Not the yelling part, just the talking part." "Good," he said. "Let's start with breakfast." They met at a cafe across the street, outdoor seating. She ordered green tea and toast. He got black coffee and egg whites. He didn't ask for her story. He waited for her to offer it. She told him the basics, her name, the divorce, the bank accounts, the silence. He listened, no judgment, no interruption, and when she paused, trying not to break again, he simply said, "You've had enough taken. You don't need to explain why it hurts." That was the first moment she exhaled. Over the next week, they met daily. Walks through Balboa Park, long talks about nothing and everything, quiet meals. He never pressed. He never flirted. He never offered pity. She found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone in years. Her love for branding, her early freelance days, her favorite books. He shared pieces of himself too. His mother raised him and his brother alone in Richmond. He built his first boutique wellness space at 26 and now ran 4 private properties, retreats that catered to high-end clientele who hated flashy hotel chains. "You run hotels?" she asked once. He shook his head. "I build spaces people come to when they're tired of pretending they're okay." By day 7, she felt stronger, not healed, but standing. He offered her a corner of one of his workspaces. "Just a table," he said. "No contracts, no pressure." She hesitated. "I'm not a charity case." He looked her straight in the eyes. "Good. Because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering peace." That night, she opened her laptop for the first time in months, dusted off her old branding decks, started rewriting her bio, drafted a logo. It wasn't much, but it was hers, and for the first time in a long time, she wasn't invisible. Naima hadn't touched her resume in 4 years, not because she wasn't capable, but because she'd stopped needing one. When Blaine proposed, she'd been consulting 6 different mid-size clients. Her branding pitch decks had landed companies in lifestyle magazines and opened conversations with investors. Then she married Blaine Forrester and stopped using her last name at all. Now, sitting at a spare desk in a light-filled co-working space Malik rented near Little Italy, she stared at the blinking cursor with the kind of tension usually reserved for surgeons and tightrope walkers. What did she even call herself now? Former creative director? No. She'd never been given the title. Brand consultant? Maybe. Wife? She'd spent 6 years playing that role like a job, with no salary and no resume line. She deleted 3 intros before she settled on. Naima Lark, independent brand strategist with a focus on wellness, clean beauty, and purpose-driven ventures. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest. She kept writing. Malik didn't hover. She saw him once every couple of hours, checking in on his team across the hall or grabbing coffee. He'd give her a slight nod, sometimes a small smile. Never asked her how much she'd written, never hovered behind her screen. And somehow, that freedom made her want to do more. She updated her portfolio, redesigned a few old mock-ups, and when he walked by and dropped a granola bar beside her elbow with a single word, lunch, she laughed for the first time in days. By Friday, Naima had submitted 3 proposals to local wellness brands. Small ones, startups with shaky logos and a clear need for fresh identity. On Sunday, one replied, "We love your style. Are you available to chat this week?" She stared at the email for 10 full seconds. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was re-entering. Monday came with nerves. She met Malik at his favorite cafe near Harbour Drive. He was already seated, 2 glasses of water in front of him. "Big week?" he asked. She nodded. "Potential client wants a pitch." "Then they'll get one," he said simply. He didn't ask for details, didn't offer to help, but when she pulled out a rough slide deck and bit her lip in hesitation, he leaned forward. May I? She slid the laptop toward him. He took 5 minutes to go through it. Then, slide 5, make the headline sharper. Slide 9, ditch it. You already proved the point by 7. She blinked. You read fast. I invest in people. I've learned to spot clarity. That sentence stayed with her the entire afternoon. The pitch meeting was over Zoom. She wore a crisp blouse, pulled her hair into a low bun, and spoke with more steadiness than she thought she had left. When she closed the call, she exhaled with trembling relief. Malik knocked gently on the edge of the shared kitchen island. You sounded like someone who never stopped believing in her work, he said. I faked it, she replied. That's half the game. He passed her a mug of warm tea. Cinnamon, her favorite. She never told him that. But somehow, he figured it out. They walked back to the parking lot in silence. At her car, well, the Uber she still needed for now, she turned to him. Thank you. For what? For letting me use your space. For not asking too much. For not treating me like a rescue. He shrugged. You're not a rescue. You're a reroute. Naima tilted her head. That's not a word. Sure it is, he said. It's what happens when life shuts one door and someone reminds you there are 5 more you forgot were open. That made her laugh again. The next afternoon the email came in. Naima, we'd love to move forward. Can we schedule onboarding this week? Her heart stopped. She let out a slow, shaking breath. Then, without even thinking, she texted Malik. Naima. They said yes. Malik. Of course they did. Boss lady always closes. She read the message 3 times. Boss lady. She hadn't felt like one in years. They met that evening for a drink, not dinner. Malik didn't push moments into things they weren't. It was a rooftop bar with no dress code and no noise. Just jazz in the background and sunset lighting the horizon. She wore a simple burgundy dress. Nothing flashy. No heels. Hair down. He looked at her and said, There you are. She blushed. Have I been somewhere else? He sipped his drink. Behind someone else's shadow. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But the air between them started to change. It was no longer about survival. It was about being seen. The morning started with sunlight cutting across her sheets and a phone that didn't ring with bad news. Naima lay still for a few minutes, holding the peace like a fragile thing she didn't want to disturb. She had a new client onboarding in 2 hours. She'd prepped her slide deck, confirmed the timeline, and set up a fresh workspace. At the co-working spot, Malik had now officially told her to treat as hers. But what she hadn't prepared for was Blaine. She saw him before he saw her. She was walking back from grabbing lunch at the Thai spot near the office when she turned the corner and froze. There he was, standing in front of a valet stand, tossing keys to a teenage attendant like the world still owed him smooth service. Grey slacks, pressed white shirt, expensive loafers, that same smug stance, like every sidewalk was his stage. And beside him, a woman, maybe 26, blonde, laughing too loudly, holding his arm. Naima's breath caught, but only for a second. Because here's the thing, once you've cried in a motel room by yourself with $12 left in your account, seeing your ex in designer shoes doesn't sting the same. She watched him for one more beat, then turned. But he caught her. Naima? She paused, turned back, slowly. Calm. Blaine. His eyes darted to the woman beside him, then back to her. You're still in San Diego? Apparently so. He took a step closer. The woman hung back, confused. You look, well, he said, with a half smile she used to fall for. I thought, maybe you'd have gone home. Why? You think I'd run? Her tone didn't rise. It didn't shake. It cut. Blaine blinked. She didn't wait for him to respond. I've got a client meeting. He raised a brow. A client? I work, she said. Something you might not understand if no one's clapping for you. His face twitched. The blonde finally stepped up. Blaine, are we? He turned to her. Yeah, 1 sec. Naima took that moment to glance at the woman fully. Pretty, glossy, Exactly the kind of arm Candy Blaine would choose after dumping someone who knew too much about him. Naima gave her a nod. Good luck. Then walked off. Not faster, not shakier, just away. Back at the workspace, Malik noticed her pause at the door. You good? She set her bag down, pulled off her blazer, took a breath. I just saw Blaine. He stilled. You okay? She nodded. He looked surprised, like I was supposed to be hiding under a rock, like I should have vanished. Malik handed her a bottle of water, sat on the edge of her desk. And what did you do? I reminded him, I don't disappear. I redesign. He smiled. That's my girl. The words caught her, not for what they said, but for how they made her feel, like she belonged somewhere again. Later that evening, she received an unexpected email. Subject, you look good today, from Blaine Forrester. She didn't open it. She didn't delete it either. She moved it to a folder labeled Dust. That night, Malik cooked. Not in some performative, look-at-me kind of way. Just him in a soft black tea, chopping vegetables like it was second. Nature, barefoot, jazz playing low from a speaker in the corner. Naima offered to help. He handed her a spoon. You stir. I'll do the work. They moved around the kitchen like they'd done it 100 times before. When she laughed too hard and spilled sauce on the counter, he didn't flinch. He grabbed a towel, wiped it slowly, then looked at her. Not with pity, not with lust, just care. I like this version of you, he said softly. She tilted her head. Which version is that? The one that doesn't shrink. Her breath hitched. And in that quiet space, under warm light and the smell of ginger and garlic, he reached out, just enough to touch the side of her face, thumb resting near her jaw, eyes holding hers without rush. She didn't move away, but he didn't pull her in either. Instead, he whispered, Not tonight. Not like this. You're still holding the dust. She nodded. For once, she was thankful a man didn't chase what she wasn't ready to give. The next morning, she woke up to a message. Malik, whenever you're ready to stop running, I'm right here. But you won't have to chase me either. Have you ever run into someone who thought you wouldn't survive without them, only to realize you're doing better than ever? Hit that like button if you've ever been counted out. Comment. I'm not shrinking anymore if you're choosing peace over proving yourself. Tap subscribe so you never miss the moment a woman reclaims her story on her own terms. Because healing doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's just walking past the person who broke you and not flinching. Naima adjusted the collar of her cream blazer, took one last glance at the slide deck on her iPad, and walked into the glass conference room with her head high. 3 weeks ago, she was sleeping in a stranger-paid hotel room with no bank access and no plan. Today, she was standing at the front of a startup's downtown office suite, presenting a brand overhaul proposal for their health and wellness platform. 3 executives, 1 skeptical founder, a marketing assistant who reminded her of her younger self. Naima didn't perform. She presented, confidently, clearly. Each slide showed her strategy for visual direction, brand tone, partnership opportunities, and digital rollout. She didn't oversell. She didn't beg. She owned. By the time she reached the end of the deck, the skeptical founder leaned back and said, We should have called you months ago. Back at Malik's workspace, she walked in with her blazer draped over her shoulder and a grin she couldn't suppress. He looked up from his laptop, caught her energy, and stood. How'd it go? They signed on the spot. He walked toward her, arms wide. She dropped her blazer just in time to fall into the hug. He didn't pat her back or whisper cliches. He just held her tight, warm, proud, and when they pulled apart, something in the space between them stayed charged. Boss lady wins again, he said. She rolled her eyes playfully. You're gonna wear that nickname out. No such thing. That name fits you. Her smile softened. I'm starting to believe that. They grabbed lunch at a quiet Mediterranean cafe down the block. Outside, the sun cut through the breeze. Inside, it smelled of lemon, olive oil, and warm bread. Malik sat across from her, sipping mint tea. "I have a question," he said. She raised a brow. "Am I in trouble?" He smirked. "Do you want to be?" She nearly choked on her water, then laughed. "Wow, Malik, that's the first time I've heard you flirt. Is it flirting if I mean it?" She paused, met his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't deflect. "I don't know what we're doing," she admitted, "but I know I haven't felt this grounded in a long time." "That's good," he said, setting his cup down, "because I wasn't offering a fling. I don't do temporary." Later that evening, Naima stepped into her apartment, the one she'd found through her own application, funded with her own earnings. Small, warm, hers. The key in the door felt heavier with meaning. She placed her things down, changed into a soft black t-shirt and shorts, then sank into the couch. Her phone buzzed. "Malik, check your doorstep." She blinked, got up, opened the door. A box, no label, just twine and a card. Inside, a pair of clean white studio headphones and a note. "Because you told me once you missed listening to music the way you used to. Thought it was time you heard yourself clearly again." She smiled, touched, then sat back down, put them on, and played the playlist she hadn't touched in over a year. That night, she didn't text him back. Not because she didn't want to, but because sometimes a woman needs to feel the full echo of kindness without rushing to respond. And Malik, he gave her that space. Every time. The next morning, she woke to another message. "Malik, coffee and walk. No work talk. Just us." "Naima, us. Malik, or whatever you want to call it. No pressure, just presence." She met him at the park. No makeup. Hoodie. Sneakers. He was in joggers and a long-sleeve tee, 2 coffees in hand. They walked, talked about everything but business. And halfway around the lake, she reached for his hand. Not as a signal, not as a test, but because she wanted to. And he held it like it was the most natural thing in the world. The coffee walk turned into a habit. Every Saturday morning, same time, same park. No expectations, no pressure. Sometimes they barely talked. Other times, they couldn't stop. That Saturday, Malik brought her a croissant and a folded newspaper. She blinked. "You still read these?" "Only the back pages," he said, "where they list business acquisitions no one's paying attention to." She laughed. "Of course you do." They found a bench under a sycamore tree, its leaves falling lazily around them like soft reminders of the seasons shifting. Malik didn't speak right away. He unwrapped his croissant, broke it in half, offered her a piece. She took it, then leaned back, watching the pond in front of them. "Your silence isn't uncomfortable," she said after a while. He turned his head toward her. "Most people rush to fill it," she added. "You don't. I only speak when the words are more valuable than the piece." She nodded slowly. Then, without warning, he reached over and brushed her cheekbone with the back of his fingers. Soft, certain. She held his gaze. "May I?" he asked quietly. Naima didn't blink. "Yes." He leaned in, and their lips met, not with fire, but with understanding. It was warm, unrushed, the kind of kiss that didn't need to lead anywhere. It was a promise, not a performance. When they pulled apart, she stayed close, his forehead pressed to hers. "I've wanted to do that since day 3, he whispered. "I've wanted it since day 7, she murmured. "But I wasn't ready." He nodded. "I know." That night, they sat in her apartment. No music, no TV, just floor pillows, candles, and a bottle of red wine. He opened up slowly, told her about his younger brother, Micah, how he'd been diagnosed with bipolar disorder in college, how Malik had taken on the financial responsibility of care, doctors, and legal protections when their mother passed. "Micah's doing better now," he said. "Stable. He works in design again. But for 3 years I ran every property, every deal, while flying to check on him monthly." Naima sat still. "Why didn't you ever talk about this?" she asked softly. He looked at her. because it wasn't part of my pitch, and because strong doesn't mean loud. She felt something shift in her chest. People always assumed Malik had it easy, that his calm came from comfort, but now she understood. He'd earned every inch of that quiet. And he didn't wear it like a crown. He wore it like armor, worn, but never heavy. When she reached for his hand that night, he laced his fingers with hers. "I'm not asking for forever," she said. "I'm not offering a test," he replied. "Just a place to land when the world gets loud again." She leaned into his shoulder, closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to explain her silence either. The next morning, she woke up wrapped in a blanket on the couch, Malik still next to her, sound asleep. She didn't wake him. She just watched the way his chest rose and fell, steady. Sure, this wasn't the man who broke her. This was the man who reminded her she'd never been broken, only buried, now unburied, and blooming. That afternoon, she found an old notebook, the one she used to jot down branding ideas when she still believed she could build something of her own. She turned to a fresh page, wrote at the top, "Reroute creative." Not a comeback, not revenge, just a new direction, inspired by the man who saw her not as a project, but as a person. Naima stood in front of the glass door of a tiny studio unit off Kettner Boulevard. The sun filtered in just enough to catch the name newly printed across the window, "Reroute creative branding for the brave." She'd kept it quiet. No launch party, no announcement, no splashy emails, just a clean website, 3 client contracts, and a vision she refused to let stay folded in a notebook. Inside, there were only 2 desks, 1 bookshelf, and a standing lamp she bought from a thrift shop around the corner. The smell of fresh paint still hung in the air. But it was hers, all hers. By mid-morning, she was finishing a logo revision for a plant-based skincare line when her phone buzzed. Malik, heading back early. "You around tonight?" She smiled before she typed her reply. "Naima, only if you bring that peppery red wine I liked." Malik, say less. She hadn't seen him in 4 days. He'd been in Arizona, meeting with one of his regional property leads. And, while they spoke every night, she'd missed him more than she expected. Not in a needy way, in a want-you-to-be-here-for-my-wins kind of way. That evening, he showed up at her door with a bottle in one hand and a brown paper bag of tacos in the other. "Balance," he said, stepping in. She kissed him at the door this time. Quick, intentional. Her hand lingered on his chest longer than usual. "You're still warm," she murmured. "I came straight from the car," he said. "Missed you." They ate, laughed. He tasted her new recipe for chili mango sauce and told her it was bold like her. And when they finally curled into the couch together, her head on his chest, she asked him something she'd never dared before. "Do you ever think about the future?" His hand moved across her shoulder slowly. "Yeah," he said, "but I don't map it out. I measure who I want standing next to me if everything I've built disappears." She tilted her head up. "And I think you'd stay even if my name didn't open any doors." Naima was back at the studio, in a flow state, finalizing a brand board for a new sustainable perfume client, when her phone rang. Malik. Her smile dropped the second she heard his voice. "Naima, can you talk?" Her whole body stilled. "Yes." "What happened?" "I got a call. From San Luis. Micah's boss said he didn't show up to work. Cops found him sitting in his car outside the office, confused. Said he was waiting for the world to stop spinning." Naima stood up. "Is he okay?" "He's safe now. At the clinic. But he had an episode. First in over a year." Her chest tightened. "Do you need to go?" "I'm already on the way." "I'll come with you." "No," he said immediately. "You've got work, clients. I just needed to hear your voice before I got there." She didn't argue, but her heart dropped lower with every second. Because when you love someone who's always holding things together, watching them bend is harder than breaking yourself. That night, she didn't sleep. She left her phone on, checked it every hour, scrolled through old texts from Malik just to feel closer to the calm he gave her. And by sunrise, she had made a decision. She packed a bag, called her assistant, rescheduled her meetings, then got in her car and started driving north. She didn't ask permission. She just showed up at the clinic an hour outside of San Luis Obispo and told the nurse at the front, "I'm here for Malik Rhodes. I'm not family, but I need him to know someone's here for him this time." The nurse nodded slowly and pointed down the hall. "Room 12. She knocked gently. He opened the door, and the second he saw her, he didn't speak. He just pulled her in, tight, buried his face in her neck, and exhaled like he hadn't since the call. They sat in the room together for an hour, didn't talk much. Micah was asleep in the bed. Peaceful, Naima sat in the chair beside Malik, holding his hand while he watched the rise and fall of his brother's chest. "He's the strongest person I know," Malik said softly. Naima squeezed his hand. "So, are you?" He turned to her. "No one's ever shown up for me like this, not without being asked." "You didn't have to," she whispered. "You made showing up feel easy." They stayed 2 more days in San Luis Obispo. Malik didn't ask her to. Naima didn't wait for an invitation. The clinic allowed Malik to visit Micah every morning at 9 and again at 5. In between, he'd sit outside in the courtyard, sipping cold coffee, answering work calls without ever sounding rushed, but Naima noticed the quiet tremble in his foot, the kind of tension no phone call could hide. She stayed close, not hovering, not inserting herself, just near, present. In the evenings, they walked the small, tree-lined streets of the town in silence. She'd never seen him this still. His usual steady calm had turned into something more guarded, like he was pouring all his energy into not unraveling. On the 3rd night, they sat on the motel patio outside their room, wrapped in light sweaters. The air smelled like eucalyptus and cold gravel. "I was 12 when Micah had his first episode," Malik said quietly. "Mom thought it was just stress. He was so smart, gifted even. But then he disappeared after school one day. We found him 2 towns over, sitting in an empty park, asking strangers if they could hear the music in the grass." Naima didn't speak. She didn't need to. "After Mom passed, he stopped trusting people," Malik went on. "Wouldn't take his meds unless I sat with him. Wouldn't go to therapy unless I drove. Some months I ran payroll at my company from the hospital parking lot." Naima reached over and rested her hand on his thigh. "You didn't tell me this before. Didn't want it to change how you saw me." She looked at him. "It doesn't." He met her gaze. "I'm not invincible, Naima." "Good," she whispered. "I don't need perfect. I just need real." They slept in the same bed that night, fully clothed, facing each other. No moves, no words, just breaths shared between them. Malik's hand found hers in the dark, their fingers lacing as if they'd always known the shape. The next morning, Micah woke up alert, calmer. Malik's shoulders dropped in relief as they sat with him, sharing inside jokes and stories from childhood. When Micah teased Malik about his old high school crush, Naima smiled. This was what family looked like, not the curated kind, the real kind, messy, loyal, rooted in care. Before they left, Micah looked at her and said, "You're the first woman Malik's brought around who didn't act like he was a trophy." Naima smiled. "He's not a trophy. He's a partner." Micah winked. "Then you'll do just fine." On the drive back to San Diego, the mood shifted. The miles were long but not heavy. Malik reached for her hand as they passed through the valley roads. She didn't let go for 2 hours. "I know this wasn't your plan," he said. Naima looked out the window, then back at him. "My plan was to survive my divorce. Anything else is bonus." He chuckled. "Well, I hope I count as a decent bonus." She smirked. "You're premium." That night, back at her apartment, they cooked together again. Naima sautéed shrimp. Malik made jasmine rice and asparagus. No candles this time, just music. A playlist she used to play back when she thought she had it all. Now, it felt different, fuller. When they sat down to eat, Malik reached for her hand again, this time without looking, like it was second nature. Halfway through the meal, she asked, "What happens if things get hard again?" "They will," he said. "That's life." She studied him. "And when they do?" He looked at her then. Slow, direct. I'll still be here. I won't run. And I won't let you either. They didn't kiss that night. They did something better. They chose each other, without conditions. The knock at her studio door wasn't expected. Naima glanced up from her desk, expecting the mail carrier or one of her assistant's delivery app drop-offs. But when she opened the door, her breath locked. Blaine stood there, wearing his signature tailored jacket, open collar, smug stance. But this time, something was different. He looked bothered. Naima, he said, voice lower than usual. Can we talk? She blinked once, calmly, then pushed the door open just enough to lean against the frame. He motioned around them. Not out here. Can I come in? She hesitated, not because she was afraid, but because she no longer owed him the comfort of privacy. Still, she stepped aside, only because she knew exactly who she was now, and she wasn't hiding behind doors anymore. Inside, Blaine looked around, the exposed brick, the small couch, the open laptop showing mock-ups, the framed print on the wall that read, "You're not hard to love. They were hard to trust." He cleared his throat. You've done well for yourself. Naima didn't thank him. She sat, crossed one leg over the other, and waited. He paced. I'm not here to argue. I've just been thinking. Naima raised an eyebrow. Thinking about what? The time you deleted my bank access or the note you left that read like a checkout slip? He paused. I didn't expect things to go the way they did. You mean you didn't expect me to be fine without you? Silence. She let it sit, then added, You're not here for closure. So what do you want? Blaine exhaled. My investors pulled out last quarter. One of my top products got flagged for mislabeling. There's a situation with a patent that's tied up in court. Naima didn't flinch. Still, he kept going. And I know it's a long shot, but your name still holds weight in certain circles, especially in the clean beauty and wellness space. She narrowed her eyes. Are you asking me to endorse you? I'm asking you to help. Naima stood up slowly, walked over to her bookshelf, pulled out a folder. Inside was a copy of the revised deck she'd presented for her second client, one that had landed her a 5-figure deal and a featured spread in a wellness magazine. She held it up. You remember this brand? Blaine nodded faintly. You pitched them once. They said no. They said no to you, she corrected. They said yes to me last month. Then she handed him the folder. Not to help him, but to let him see what he walked away from. He flipped through the pages, face tightening. You've rebuilt, he said finally. No, she said. I built, period. You never let me start before. He looked up. What if I said I wanted to make things right? Naima chuckled under her breath. You don't want to make things right. You want to clean up your image. I made mistakes, Naima. Mistakes are what people admit when they trip over a crack. You burned the entire bridge. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Then he did something that almost made her pause. He looked regretful. Look, I know I messed up. I know I threw away something good. But if there's any part of you that still... She cut him off. Still what? He searched her face. She didn't offer softness. She didn't offer pain. Only truth. There's no part of me that wants back what never fit. He stood up, ran a hand through his hair. You've changed. I remembered who I was. He turned toward the door, hesitated, then said, If you change your mind about helping, let me know. She didn't respond, didn't nod, didn't say goodbye. He left, and for the first time ever, she didn't crumble. She closed the door, locked it, and smiled. Malik arrived at the studio late that evening. He had a bag of Thai takeout in one hand and a bouquet of deep purple tulips in the other. Naima looked up from her desk, her eyes immediately softening, until he caught the tension in her shoulders. He placed the food down, leaned on the table and asked, You okay? She paused, bit her lower lip, then nodded, but he didn't move, didn't say anything, just waited. And like always, The quiet between them made space for the truth to land. "Blaine came by," she finally said. Malik didn't react the way men do in movies. No pacing, no raised voice. He just asked, what did he want? To see if I'd help him. His company's flailing. He's got lawsuits, product issues, a branding disaster, and he thought, maybe I'd save him. Malik blinked slowly. Did he ask with an apology? No. He asked with expectation. He nodded once, then asked the question that mattered most. How did you feel? Naima hesitated. I thought I'd be shaken, but I wasn't. I didn't feel small, or afraid, or angry. I just felt done. Malik walked around the desk, pulled her gently up from her chair, and wrapped his arms around her. You should feel proud. I feel clean. That's better. They ate dinner on the couch, legs tucked under blankets, soft jazz playing low. After the meal, Malik leaned back, looked at her and said, You, Don. Need me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. What you did today, that was power. Naima tilted her head. I didn't yell. I didn't even slam the door. Exactly, he said. The loudest thing you did was not need him. That's real closure, and not many people get there. She looked down, quiet for a beat. I thought I had to prove something for years, and today I realize I don't need to prove anything. Not to him, not to anyone. He kissed her shoulder gently. That's the version of you the world needs. Later, she showed him the brand deck she'd used during her meeting with Blaine. He flipped through the slides, brows slightly raised. This is tight, he said. Structured, clean, confident. You didn't just walk away from him. You outgrew him. Naima rested her chin on his shoulder. I want to build something that helps women who've had their power stripped by a partner, a boss, the system. I want Reroute to be more than a brand studio. I want it to be a reminder. Malik turned to her. Then that's what we'll build. He didn't say you'll. He said will. And in that one word, she heard a lifetime of partnership, not possession. 2 days later, Naima was invited to speak at a women-led wellness summit. Her name had been suggested by one of her early clients. The topic, resilience in reinvention. She didn't hesitate to say yes. When she told Malik, he smiled. Wear something you'd be afraid to wear around your past. She smirked. Like what? Something that makes you feel like the woman who left that bench in La Jolla and never looked back. The day of the event, she wore a tailored crimson jumpsuit, minimal jewelry, soft curls, no flashy logo on her chest, just quiet confidence. When she stepped onto that stage and saw over 200 women looking up at her, she paused, not out of nerves, out of gratitude. Then she began. My name is Naima Lark, and I don't have a bounce-back story. I have a reclaim story. She told them about losing everything, about silence, about remembering her own name in rooms that forgot it, and about the stranger who didn't save her, but reminded her she didn't need to be rescued. When she stepped off stage, she had tears in her eyes, not from pain, but from remembering how far she'd come. Malik was waiting near the exit, wearing a small smile and holding a single tulip. You looked like you were speaking straight to your past and kissing it goodbye. Naima took the flower, leaned in and whispered. That was the point. The email came at 6:07 a.m. Subject line, Reroute featured in Found Her Weekly. Naima blinked at her phone. Sat up, opened the article. Front page mention. A profile on rising female-led creative agencies changing the wellness branding space, and Reroute was listed third. Her name, her logo, her mission. No mention of Blaine. No reference to the man who tried to erase her. Only Naima Lark, founder, strategist, survivor turned builder. She stared at the screen for a full minute before picking up her phone and dialing. Malik's voice was groggy but warm. Hey, you're on speaker, she said. I need both hands to scream. He chuckled. Good scream or bad scream? Very good. National spotlight good. Front page of Found Her good. She heard him sit up. Say less. I'm bringing breakfast. By 8:15 a.m., he was at her studio door with a bag of fresh croissants, orange juice, and a green smoothie she liked but always complained about drinking. He handed her the paper-wrapped pastries first, fuel before feedback. They sat on the couch, knees touching. "People are going to start calling," he said. "You ready for that?" She nodded. "I didn't build this to stay small." Malik smiled. "Then let it grow. I've got your back. No matter what." Calls started rolling in within hours. 2 podcast invites, 1 inquiry from a mid-sized clean cosmetics brand out of Portland, and a DM from a woman who said, "I left my husband 2 weeks ago and found your story. I think I can do this now. Thank you." That one made her cry, because she remembered the day she couldn't even afford a ride home. By noon she was back in work mode, headphones on, mood locked in. She was mid-slide revision when her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail, but then another and another. She checked the transcript. "Naima, it's Patrice. You may not remember me. I was Blaine's former executive assistant. I think he's planning something, and it's not good." She sat up. Replay. "He's angry. Bitter. I saw your name on that magazine and the way he reacted. He's trying to make calls, trying to find dirt, and I just thought you should know. He hasn't let go. Be careful." Naima stared at the screen, not afraid, just tired. Because some people don't want closure, they want control. And when they lose it, they claw. She forwarded the voicemail to herself, saved it, then opened a blank document and typed, "Contingency plan, Blaine interference." She wasn't playing games, and she wasn't about to let fear slow her now. That night, she sat on her balcony with Malik, her legs draped over his lap, a throw blanket across them both. She told him about the message. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "Do you want me to handle it?" "No," she said. "I need to, but I do want you next to me when I do." "Always," he said without pause. Naima took a slow breath. "Blaine's used to me being quiet, but I'm not quiet anymore." The next morning, she sent a legal letter to Blaine's office. Not threatening, not dramatic. Just a reminder that she owned her name, her business, and her reputation, and would defend all 3 without hesitation. It wasn't about fear. It was about boundaries, and she was done letting people test where hers began. The same day, she got a text from a number she hadn't seen in a while. "Blaine, didn't know you were into lawsuits now. Thought you were too classy for that." She didn't reply, but she screenshotted it, filed it, and texted Malik, "Naima. He poked the wrong version of me. Malik, I'll have a table waiting when you're ready to celebrate that." Naima didn't celebrate her rise out loud. She kept her head down, did the work, treated people fairly. But when the world looked at her now, it didn't see a billionaire's ex-wife. It saw a woman who had been erased and still came back clearer. The email came from a familiar address. Subject: Reroute plus Revise collab inquiry from press@revisebeautygroup.com. Naima opened it. The tone was formal, complimentary, but 2 lines in, her stomach turned. "Our team has been in conversations with Blaine Forrester, your former business associate and strategic consultant, regarding a partnership opportunity that references his prior relationship with your agency's founder, Miss Naima Lark." She stopped reading. Strategic consultant? Blaine had told a national wellness brand that he was involved in Reroute's early stages. He was trying to attach himself to her success, to rewrite history, and worse. She could already hear how people would spin it. He made her. He coached her. He still had influence. Naima's throat tightened, but instead of reacting emotionally, she hit forward. To Malik's subject, "You're not going to believe this." He called seconds later. "Want to come over?" he asked. "No," she said. "I want to come with my laptop. I'm filing a cease and desist." An hour later, they sat at his kitchen counter. Naima typed with calm precision. Malik read over her shoulder. "He wants credit for the same story he tried to erase," she muttered. "He really thinks he can stitch himself back into it. Because people like him only respect what they can control." Malik said. You're a mirror now. Every time your name grows, he sees what he lost. Naima exhaled. Good. Let him look. The next morning, she sent a formal letter to Revise Beauty Group's legal team, outlining the following. And she and Blaine Forrester had no formal business history. And he was not a partner, advisor, or consultant in any capacity. Any misrepresentation of his connection to her brand would result in legal action. Attached were screenshots, timelines, and proof of Reroute's solo founding. She CC'd her attorney, press contact, and brand rep. Then she went for a run. Not to clear her head, but to celebrate the fact that she no longer reacted with panic. She responded with power. Later that day, Revise Beauty issued an internal correction and a formal apology to her team. They had misunderstood Mr. Forrester's involvement. Of course they did, because men like Blaine always walked into rooms acting like owners, until someone showed up with receipts. Malik met her outside her studio that night. He had no wine, no takeout, just his presence. She stepped into his arms the second she saw him. I feel like I've been putting out fires all month, she whispered. You're not, he said. You're burning off the weeds. They sat on the stoop together. She leaned against his shoulder. He ran a hand down her back. Can I tell you something? He said. Always. I used to think peace was something you bought. Vacations, property, silence. But then I met you. She looked up at him. You didn't bring me peace, Naima. You reminded me where to build it. And now? I don't want quiet unless you're in it. Her breath caught. Then she kissed him, not the soft kiss from weeks ago. This one was rooted, grounded, the kind that says, I see you and I'm not going anywhere. They made love that night, slow, intentional, no walls, no performance, no fear that one would leave in the morning. And when it was over, Naima lay with her head on his chest, her fingers drawing soft lines across his skin. Do you think he's done? She asked. Malik didn't lie. No, but you are. She smiled. Yes, I am. Because power isn't in shouting. It's in knowing you don't owe anyone a seat in your story once they tried to write you out. Have you ever had someone try to attach themselves to your success after they threw you away when you had nothing? Tap like if you've ever had to set a boundary they didn't expect. Comment. My story is mine if you've rebuilt something they once tried to destroy. Hit subscribe so you never miss a moment where the past tries to sneak back in, and the future says, not today, because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's strength with better focus. The invitation came in a thick cream envelope with gold trim. No email, no DM. An actual letter, hand-signed. Naima turned it over in her hands as she sat behind her desk at Reroute Creative, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floor. She hadn't seen stationery like this in years. Women in Brand Leadership, 2025 National Panel Series, Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York Keynote Panel, Reshaping Identity After Reinvention. She skimmed the first paragraph, then the second. Her name wasn't just mentioned. She was listed as a featured speaker, full bio, company profile, photo request enclosed. It was the kind of invitation she used to dream about back when her name only appeared on someone else's guest list as a +1. She smiled, closed the folder, then flipped to the back page, panelist list. The smile faded. There it was, second name down. Blaine Forrester, founder, Forrester Labs topic. From disruption to longevity, lessons from building a lasting brand. She didn't react at first. She stood, poured herself a glass of water, sat back down, then picked up her phone. Malik answered on the first ring. Talk to me. They invited me to a national panel series. Naima, he said, instantly catching her tone. What's wrong? She let out a breath. He's on it. Blaine, same panel. Malik was quiet for a moment. Do you want to do it? That's the thing, I do. I earned that stage. But I know exactly how he works. He'll spin his narrative. He'll find a way to tie himself to my rise. You don't have to prove anything, Malik said. You already left the room he thought you couldn't live without. Naima stared at the panel schedule. "I know," she said softly. "But maybe I want to show up anyway. Not for him, for every woman in that room who's still trying to get out." That night, they sat on Malik's balcony. He grilled salmon. She made salad. They ate under string lights. When she told him her final decision, she expected him to challenge it. Instead, he nodded. "You're walking in with the truth. He's walking in with a mask. The more you shine, the more his cracks will show. And if he tries to bait me, don't rise to it," Malik said. "He's not your opponent. He's your old chapter. You've already turned the page." Naima emailed the event organizers the next morning. "Confirmed. Looking forward to contributing to the conversation. See attached headshot." Then she made a note on her calendar. "Show up. Stay rooted. Speak truth." A week before the panel, her inbox lit up again. This time from a writer at Modern Brand Woman, one of the leading industry publications. They wanted to run a joint profile, Naima and Blaine, about power dynamics in wellness branding. Her stomach turned. No more sharing space where she was once erased. She replied immediately, "Thank you for thinking of me. I'm available for a solo profile, but I won't participate in anything that asks me to share credit with someone who once silenced my contribution." The writer replied 2 hours later. Naima's solo feature would run the week after the panel. She didn't need to play defense anymore. She was playing her own game. The ballroom was packed. Glass chandeliers. Rows of chairs filled with rising founders, creative directors, investors. Every seat taken. Every eye forward. Naima stood backstage, her name printed on the sleek panel card clipped to her badge. Across the curtain, she could already hear murmurs. They knew her name. They'd read her story. They were waiting. And so was Blaine. She saw him through the side curtain. Standing tall in a sharp grey suit, white pocket square tucked neatly, shaking hands with a brand sponsor like he owned the stage. Same Blaine. But this time, she wasn't walking out as anyone's footnote. She was walking out as the headline. The panel began. One by one, speakers introduced themselves. Naima sat between two powerhouse CEOs, and 2 chairs down, Blaine. His smile didn't reach his eyes when he greeted her. She nodded once. No warmth, no fear. The moderator began. Today's topic, reinvention, identity, and the tension between personal story and public brand. Each of you has had a unique journey, some with pivots, some with controversy. We'll start simple. What did you leave behind to become who you are now? Naima's turn came third. She adjusted the mic, took a breath, and spoke. I left behind silence. I left behind the version of myself that thought being easy to love meant being easy to forget. I used to sit at tables where my ideas were, taken and presented as someone else's. Today, I run a company that helps women build what no one else believed in, because I lived through that dismissal myself. The audience was quiet. Then they clapped. Not politely, not lightly, fully. The moderator nodded. Thank you, Naima Blaine. He leaned forward, his voice smooth, trained. My path was the opposite. I started loud, ambitious, always pushing. But I've learned that building something meaningful means letting go of ego. I admire stories like Naima's, because they remind us of the humility required to start again. Naima didn't blink, because she knew what this was. Reputation laundering, strategic admiration, a performance, and he didn't mean a word of it. During Q&A, someone asked, "What advice would you give to anyone who's been underestimated?" Naima didn't pause. Let them underestimate you. Then build something they'll never be able to take credit for. The audience roared. After the panel, people lined up to speak with her. A podcast producer, a major VC contact, a young woman who whispered, "I got out 2 months ago because of your interview in Found Her." Blaine stood on the edge, forgotten. No one approached. He left before the lights dimmed. Back in her hotel room, Naima stood at the window, watching the city lights shimmer below. Her phone buzzed. "Malik, you lit the whole room up. Could feel it from here." She smiled. "Naima, He tried to borrow my spotlight. Didn't realize I built the power grid. Malik, you're not his echo. You're the thunder. She turned her phone off. No need for noise. Not when the world had finally heard her. The email came from an agency based in New York. Subject: potential relocation plus creative director offer for national expansion sender. Partner at risebrands.company. Naima read it twice. Then, once more. The offer was clear. They wanted her. Not just reroute services, but her vision, her presence, her voice. They'd followed her growth, seen her on the panel, and believed she could help lead the East Coast expansion of a major wellness portfolio. Full relocation, 6-month contract, housing covered, and, if it went well, a seat at the executive table. She exhaled, folded her laptop shut, stared out the window. Later that evening, Malik arrived with groceries. No takeout tonight. He wanted to cook for her. Said she'd been pouring so much out lately, she needed someone to fill the room with calm again. He chopped. She leaned on the counter. And for a while, everything was easy again. Until she said softly, "I got an offer today." He looked up. Good offer. Big offer. He dried his hands, gave her his full attention. From Rise Brands. New York. His brows lifted. That's major. Yeah, it is. Silence. Then, what are you thinking? I haven't decided, she said. It's just, I worked so hard to rebuild here. With you, with Reroute. And now this comes, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say yes because it's right, or stay because it's real. Malik walked over, wrapped his arms around her from behind. I want you to fly, Naima, he said into her shoulder. Even if I'm not holding the plane. She turned in his arms. That sounds like letting go. No, he said. That sounds like loving someone enough not to cage what they've grown. They didn't talk about it again that night. They ate dinner, listened to music, slept in the same bed. But when Naima woke up at 3:47 a.m. and looked over at him sleeping, her heart ached, because she'd never known this kind of peace before. And now she was being asked to risk it again, for a version of herself that wasn't finished becoming. The next morning, she told her assistant to hold her schedule. She needed time, to think, to listen, to breathe. She walked to the water's edge, sat on a bench, and wrote down 2 columns, stay, and Malik and Reroutes, roots and familiar peace, and she rebuilt go. Expansion, national exposure, and bigger resources and proof she was no longer limited. She stared at the list, then drew a line through the middle, because maybe it wasn't a question of choosing one. Maybe it was about asking, what does balance look like now? Her phone rang. It was Malik. You okay? He asked. I think I need a few days, she said, to figure out if the next step is growth or escape. His voice was steady. Take what you need. I'm not going anywhere. Naima arrived in Manhattan on a cool Thursday afternoon. The skyline greeted her like an old friend with sharp edges. Loud, fast, restless, the kind of energy she once used to mistake for success. She checked into the corporate apartment Rise Brands had reserved for her. 18th floor. Clean lines. All neutral tones. It felt more like a showroom than a home. She didn't unpack. The next day, she met with the executive team. The Rise office was everything you'd expect. Open concepts, exposed beams, hanging plants to soften the concrete. Their pitch was polished, their vision ambitious, and they knew her work inside out. She was flattered, even impressed. But somewhere in the middle of the presentation, when they started using words like "we can soften your tone for wider," markets and Malik's name is strong locally, but we'd pivot to just yours for this campaign. Her stomach tightened. She smiled politely, but the moment they spoke of Malik as a stepping stone, she knew. They didn't see her wholeness, only her value. That night, she had dinner alone at a quiet spot in Soho. Candlelight, mushroom risotto, no one watching her timeline. She pulled out her phone and typed a note to herself. If the next level requires pretending I walked this alone, it's not the level I want. She didn't send it, just saved it, and felt peace return to her body like warmth after a long chill. Malik called as she walked back to the apartment. "I didn't want to bug you," he said, "but I've been pacing like a dad outside a delivery room." Naima laughed softly. "I needed to hear your voice." "So?" he asked. "They want me, and they want a version of me that fits a mold, one that edits out what makes me, me." Silence. Then, "And what do you want?" "I want growth," she said, "but not if it means cutting off the root." She didn't sleep much that night, not because she was unsure, but because making the right choice is still hard when the wrong one comes wrapped in applause. By sunrise, she wrote her reply. "I'm honored by the offer, but I won't relocate or rebrand myself to meet someone else's idea of growth. Reroute Creative isn't just a name, it's a truth. And I'll continue to build it where it began, in full truth and full presence." She hit send, then texted Malik, "Naima, coming home tonight. Have wine ready." When she landed back in San Diego, the air felt different. Not lighter, more settled. Malik was waiting at the curb, no grand gesture, just a quiet smile and open arms. She walked straight into them. "I wasn't sure what version of me you'd get back," she said. He kissed the top of her head. "I was never waiting for a version. I was waiting for you." That night, they sat on the balcony again. He poured the wine. She kicked off her shoes, and when she looked out over the city, she saw something she hadn't seen in months, a life she wasn't surviving, but one she was finally choosing, on her own terms. It had been a month since New York. Naima had never felt clearer. Reroute Creative had added 2 new clients. Her solo feature in Modern Brandwoman had doubled her consultation requests. She'd hired her first junior strategist. And Malik had become home in the way no address ever had. He was still his calm, steady self, but something had shifted between them. There was more touch, more shared silence, more knowing glances when they passed each other in the hallway. That Sunday morning he made breakfast, French toast, berries, and her favorite cinnamon coffee. He slid a small black box across the table. Naima blinked. "What's this?" "Easy, not dramatic," he said. "Open it." Inside was a slim silver key on a chain. "My place is yours. You can still keep your own apartment. I want you to know the door's always open. Not as a guest. As mine." Her heart caught. She wasn't expecting a proposal, but this felt like one, in the way that mattered most. Real, intentional, no flash, only invitation. She smiled, slipped the chain around her neck, and leaned across the table to kiss him. "I'm in." They spent the day at Balboa Park. Easy, breezy, like nothing could touch them. Until someone did. It was near the Rose Garden. Naima had walked ahead to take a photo of a fountain. When she turned, Malik wasn't behind her. He was 10 feet back, stiff, tense, facing someone, a woman. She looked familiar, tall, neat locks, expensive sandals, navy trench coat, and eyes Naima recognized before she reached them. Not because she'd met her, but because she'd seen them once in a photo Malik kept in a drawer. The one he thought she didn't notice. Her name was Soraya, Malik's ex, Micah's former legal guardian, the one who left when things got too hard. Naima approached slowly. Soraya glanced at her, then back at Malik. "I didn't come to cause trouble," Soraya said. "I heard what happened. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And to check in." Naima stayed silent. Malik didn't move. "You walked away," he said flatly. "Micah's meds ran out. You left a note. No call. No explanation." Soraya's face cracked. "I was drowning. And you let him go under too," Malik said. Naima placed a hand gently on his arm. "We should go," but Soraya stepped forward. "I know I can't undo it. I didn't expect you to move on so fast. You never loved easy." Now she looked at Naima. "You must be something different." Naima didn't flinch. "I am. And with that, she slipped her hand into Malik's and walked away. Back at the apartment, Malik barely spoke. She poured them both tea. He didn't drink his. Finally, he spoke. "I never thought I'd see her again." Naima sat beside him. "You don't owe me anything, Malik. But if this," she gestured between them, "is going to keep growing, I need to know. Do you still love her?" He looked straight at her. "I loved the idea of who she could be, not who she was." Naima nodded once. "Okay." He exhaled. "She gave up when I couldn't afford to. You stayed when I didn't even ask." Silence stretched between them. Then, he reached out, brushed a curl from her cheek. "You're not the backup plan, Naima. You're the plan." She didn't cry. She just leaned in and kissed him like the answer had already been written in every moment they hadn't let go. Later that night, Naima found Malik on the balcony. The lights from downtown San Diego flickered like static across his face. He was holding something. A letter. Old, folded, worn at the creases. He didn't look up as she stepped out. "I wrote this to her." After she left, Naima stayed silent. "I never sent it." He finally met her eyes. "Want to hear it?" She nodded. His voice was low, steady. "I loved you the way people love home when they've never had one. You were calm when I was chaos. But the truth is, I was your charity project you wanted. Someone broken enough to need you, but not too broken to scare you. And when I fell apart for real, you ran. If you ever wonder why Micah doesn't ask about you, it's because children know who stays and who didn't." He folded the letter again. "I didn't say all of that for closure," Malik said. "I said it because I don't want to carry ghosts into what we're building." Naima walked over, took the letter from his hand and dropped it in the small fire pit near the balcony chair. Flames curled around the paper. Words turned to ash. "No more ghosts," she said. He nodded. "No more ghosts." Later, wrapped in the warmth of the living room, they sat on the floor, her back against his chest. Malik rubbed slow circles on her arm. Naima stared at the ceiling. "There's something I've never told you." He waited. "I wasn't always broke. Not before London left. I had savings. My name was on the business too." He didn't interrupt. "When he blindsided me with the divorce, I thought I'd still get something. But I didn't realize." She paused. "He'd been moving things for months. My name on the paperwork meant nothing. The firm was in his mother's name. The apartment lease was in his. Even the furniture, rented. I left with 2 duffel bags and a lamp my cousin gave me." Malik whispered, "That's theft." Naima half laughed. "It's betrayal. I should have seen it. But I kept giving him the benefit of the doubt. My mama used to say, 'The devil don't need horns when he's handsome.'" Malik's arms tightened. "I see you now," he said. "And I don't mean through what happened to you. I mean who you've become in spite of it." Naima turned in his arms, her forehead resting on his. "I used to think being strong meant pretending I didn't care, that I had to be fine even when I wasn't. But with you, I don't have to fake anything." "You never have to," Malik said. "Not here. Not with me." They sat like that for a long time. 2 people, once gutted by different forms of abandonment, now trying to build something tender from the truth. The next morning, Naima woke to find breakfast on the counter and a note on the fridge. "Client emergency. Back by 2. P.S. You were talking in your sleep. Something about a key and forever." "I like the sound of both." She smiled. Then her phone buzzed. An email. From New Dawn Women's Fund. The subject line, "You've been selected." Her breath caught. It was the grant she'd applied for 3 months ago. A $100,000 funding initiative for Black women, owned consultancies expanding into underserved regions. She scanned the message again. Then again. It was real. She screamed into a pillow. Then she called Malik. Voicemail. Then she called her mother and cried for 3 straight minutes. Her mama laughed, then said, "You didn't win the grant, baby. You earned it." By the time Malik returned, Naima had cleaned the whole apartment, bought a cake, and set up a small celebration in the living room. When he walked in, she jumped on him, literally. "I got I too." He caught her. Got what? The grant. The one that lets me open an office in Charlotte. His eyes widened, then softened. Naima, that's… I know. He pulled her close. I am so proud of you. Like, proud in my bones. She kissed him, then whispered, come with me. To Charlotte. Yes, you're the only part of this journey that never felt like weight. He blinked, slowly. His throat moved like he was trying not to show emotion. Then, I'm already packing in my mind. They laughed, and kissed again. Because this time, love didn't come to rescue, it came to witness, to multiply, to bloom. The launch party for Reroute Charlotte was nothing like the girl who once cried behind a closed motel door. Naima stood inside the restored brick and glass co-op space on the city's west side, dressed in a deep plum midi dress that hugged her figure with grace, not effort. The banner above her read, Celebrate, Consult, Rebuild, Reroute, Agency for Women Starting Over. The crowd buzzed with laughter, music, and stories of survival. Clients she'd helped in San Diego flew in. Local non-profits sent flowers. Even the mayor's office dropped off a congratulatory plaque, but Naima barely heard any of it. She was scanning the room for one face. Malik. He was late, which was unlike him. She stepped outside for air. Her phone buzzed. Malik, running behind. 15 minutes. You good? She smiled. Naima, more than good. But get here fast. I'm pretending I'm not nervous. Inside, her assistant handed her a note card. Opening remarks in case you want to read from it. Naima glanced at the card, then folded it. I'll speak from the heart. She stepped up to the mic. 3 years ago, I thought survival meant shrinking. I believed my voice only had value if someone powerful echoed it back. But life taught me something. Real power is the kind that doesn't beg to be recognized. It just keeps building, quietly, boldly, and eventually the world has no choice but to listen. Applause. Tears in the audience. A few women nodded, mouthing, thank you. Naima stepped down. Her assistant whispered, You've got media by the back window. Naima turned, then froze. The face that met her eyes wasn't press. It was her ex-husband, London, in a suit she hadn't seen before. But that smug, condescending smile, unchanged. He walked up like he belonged there, like he hadn't once said she'd be nothing without him, like he hadn't called her temporary. Nice speech, he said. Didn't expect philosophy from someone who used to ask me for rent. Her jaw clenched. Why are you here? London tilted his head, casually flashing a thin manila folder. I came for what belongs to me. Her stomach tightened. I'm serious, Naima. We built the business together. Even if I bought you out, on paper, your name was on some documents I never revoked. A tech fund just offered $2 million to acquire one of our early platforms. Guess who's still partially listed as CEO developer? She blinked. That can't be. Oh, but it is. London leaned closer. You're standing here acting powerful, but let's not pretend your comeback wasn't partially built on foundations I laid. Naima stepped back. I laid those foundations. I just didn't know how easily you'd sell them out from under me. He smirked. You have two options. Sign over the rights officially, quietly, or I drag your name into legal mud in front of every one of these donors and clients. Either way, I get what I want. Naima stared at him. What do you want? He stepped even closer. I want to be seen again, and you're the only platform I can still hijack for relevance. Before she could respond, Malik appeared beside her. He didn't speak at first, just stood next to her, shoulders squared, face calm, eyes locked on London. Hey, he said quietly to Naima. You okay? She gave a small nod. Then Malik turned to London. You said you want to be seen? He asked. Here's your moment. Everyone's watching. London laughed. And you are the man who held her when she had nothing, the man who sees her with no filters and no ego, and the man who will handle the legal side if you try to threaten her again. London shifted his weight. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me the moment you use threats instead of truth. You think proximity to her light means you're owed a piece of the flame? You're not. You're a shadow. And she outgrew you. Naima touched Malik's arm gently. Let me handle it. She turned to London. You want me to be scared, but I've been broke. I've been invisible. And I've still survived. So if you think a lawsuit will scare me more than losing myself again, you're out of your depth. London narrowed his eyes. We'll see. He turned and left. Naima exhaled slowly. The crowd, unaware of the encounter, continued to toast, network, and cheer the agency's success. Malik pulled her in, gently. Need a break? No, she said. I need to finish this night the way I started, with clarity. Later, in the back office, she reviewed the folder London had left behind. He hadn't been bluffing, but he hadn't read the fine print either. She wasn't listed as co-developer. She was listed as co-owner of the licensing rights, which meant if the platform sold, she wouldn't owe him. He would owe her. Naima smiled, then closed the folder. Let him file, she whispered. Let him tell the world how I helped build something worth millions, because in every loss, she'd learned the same thing. She wasn't anyone's weak chapter. She was the plot twist. The crowd inside the launch event eventually thinned out, replaced by a quieter hum of warm conversations, empty wine glasses, and glowing praise. Naima stood near the window, her plum dress catching the soft shimmer of the evening lights outside. Malik leaned beside her, both of them watching the city buzz just beyond the glass. You were fierce tonight, he said quietly, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Even when he tried to rattle you. Naima exhaled slowly, her eyes soft but unwavering. He doesn't have that power anymore. He just doesn't know it. He knows now. They shared a silent look. There was no audience, no applause, just the quiet recognition between two. People who had seen each other through survival, anger, hope, and now, something warmer, something real. Malik held her hand, his thumb brushing the inside of her palm. You said something during your speech that stuck with me, he murmured, about power not needing to be recognized, that it just keeps building. She nodded, but he wasn't done. I think love's the same. The real kind. Naima turned to him, heart skipping once. It doesn't force itself to be seen. It just shows up. Quietly, consistently. Every day. She felt her throat tighten. Is that what this is? She whispered. His lips curved into a gentle smile. Only you can say that. She didn't need time to think. Yes, she said, voice low but steady. That's exactly what this is. Malik leaned in, not to kiss her, not yet, but to press his forehead to hers. And in that quiet touch, in that closeness, everything between them shifted again. From survival to sanctuary. Later that night, the office lights had dimmed. Staff left. The space, still draped in remnants of the launch, felt peaceful. Naima walked barefoot into the lounge area, shoes in hand, her feet tired but her spirit light. Malik stood by a small table, sipping water, his tie now loose, shirt sleeves rolled up. Your assistant gave me these, he said, holding up a velvet box and a printed document. She said you forgot them in the car. Naima smiled. It's the final license agreement, and a gift from one of our early clients. Malik tilted his head. Want me to file the papers? She walked over, took the box and the envelope, and placed them gently on the table. Not yet. I want to open the gift first. Inside the velvet box was a custom keychain. Simple, silver, engraved. It read, You made room for me. So I made space for myself. Naima blinked hard, holding it close. Malik stepped behind her, his hands warm on her shoulders. You did that for so many people, Naima. And you did it for me, she whispered. She turned. I don't want to build this alone anymore. He looked at her for a long moment. You won't. Then, finally, he kissed her. Not rushed, not performative, but quiet, grounded, intentional. When they pulled apart, her hand lingered on his chest. I never thought I'd want this again. I know, he said. I waited anyway. The next morning, the sun broke gently over the Charlotte skyline. Naima and Malik walked hand in hand to the small rooftop garden above her building. Coffee in hand, silence between them, but not the kind that came from tension. This one was full, safe. Malik reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to her. She looked at him curiously. "What is this?" "Just open it." Inside was a handwritten note. "Naima, this isn't a grand proposal. No cameras, no crowd, no pressure. But it's real. I want to wake up every day knowing I don't have to guess if I matter to you. I want a life with purpose, with joy, and with you in it. Whatever pace you choose, whatever title you want. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight. I'm asking you to consider a life where you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. And if the answer is yes, someday, just leave this note on my nightstand. Malik." Naima read it twice, then again, and then she laughed, soft, full of disbelief and joy. "Malik." He turned to her, heart racing. She didn't say anything at first. She walked back inside, then returned minutes later, holding his note. She placed it gently in his open palm. He looked down, then up, his breath catching. "Is this your yes?" She nodded. "It's my forever." Yes. No ring, no pressure, no announcement. Just two people who had built something stronger than revenge or recovery. Something built on healing, trust, choice. As the city stirred awake below them, Naima and Malik sat side by side, no longer survivors of their pasts but architects of their future. And for the first time in years, Naima didn't feel like a woman starting over. She felt like a woman finally home. If you've ever been left to rebuild your life from scratch, if someone walked out on you, thinking you'd never rise again, then Naima's story is for you. She didn't chase revenge. She didn't beg to be seen. She built her worth in silence, until the whole world couldn't ignore it. And Malik, he reminded us all that love doesn't rush in. It waits, shows up, and stays. So, if you felt something in this story, tap the like button. Share it with someone who needs to believe again. And don't leave without subscribing. We've got more stories coming that'll stir your soul and remind you of your power. Drop a comment. What was your favorite moment? Was it when Naima rose at the gala, or when she finally allowed herself to be loved again? Your voice matters here. This is your channel too. Until next time, keep standing, keep rising, and never let anyone make you feel replaceable again.